so interesting because I feel like I'm in my like Cruella de Vil
No.
era where I'm like, no love, only career.
I
No.
love her. I feel like she should have come back for the remake. Like in some way, how on Wednesday you have was it Christina something coming back?
Yes, I
She's
would have loved seeing Glenn Close in that remake.
yeah. Glenn Close is just the even the animations have like her spirit in it. But
Yeah.
yeah. Did you see her at the Met? Like when she was wearing Valentino and she's just like,
I don't know.
oh,
I think she's also a queer icon because if you look at her in the 90s, she's so like beautifully
beautiful.
butch.
Yeah.
And I was like, hot. Like no joke. Like there's a interview of her like maybe on the Rosie O'Donnell show, and she's like wearing this like black turtleneck and this leather jacket, and I'm like, and her hair.
I see for me it was what's her name? Jamie Lee Curtis. And
Yeah.
and in a way, what's her name as well? Oh my God. A Whoopi Goldberg in a
Oh
way.
yeah.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Chai with Rai. Hi, I'm your host, Rai, and each week I bring you a guest from the creative industry and we discuss all things life and culture, all while sipping and sipping some hot chai. Now, if you haven't done so, make sure to subscribe to the podcast so you never miss an episode. If you love this podcast and are listening to this on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Audible, or wherever you stream your podcasts from, if you could do me a kind favor and make sure to rate the podcast and share it on your stories on social and spread the word. It organically grows the show and connects us with listeners who haven't tuned in before, and overall, just shares the love. Now, without further ado, let's warm up our cuppas. Oh, I forgot to mention almost. If you haven't followed us on social media, make sure to do so and tag us and let me know what you're sipping on whilst you listen to this episode. So I'm going to stop rambling and let's dive into part one of part two with filmmaker, writer, actor, and model Justice Jamal Jones. All right, in an interview for, was it Roaring Twenties, the podcast, you say how you think of yourself as a queer romantic person. So, with that in mind, list three things that have happened to you in a romantical setting that have been, well, not romantic. Okay, go.
I fell out of a window. I have thrown up, and I had an asthma attack.
Okay, you need to say what happened in all of those three things.
Okay, so I actually fell out of a window last year, like in August, September. I fell out of like
In
a
a
three.
romantical setting?
Yes, it was on a date, and I fell out of a window, and it was like really bad. It was like the worst date ever. And they probably thought I was crazy, but I was like, I didn't mean to. I just like this just it wasn't just wasn't a good night. And that's how that night ended. And then I have like thrown up because like you get sick sometimes and you're around your partner and that's not fun.
On
Like being
them?
no, I don't think I've thrown up on anybody before, but I've
Okay.
like been like pretty queasy. And then I also didn't realize that I was allergic to like latex.
Oh.
So like I would have sex with people and I would have an asthma attack after, and I was like, I don't know if the sex is that good that I'm getting an asthma attack after this. And then I was like, oh wait, like I'm allergic to latex.
Oh, so you're allergic to the condoms, basically.
Yeah.
Wow. Wait, so
Mhm.
what does one do now? Just,
To like use protection,
yeah, just prep?
latex free condoms,
Wait, am
or
I daft in knowing that there's latex-free condoms?
maybe a little bit. It's like they have them because people are just so allergic to
Oh,
latex.
did not know this.
Or just prep, or you're just like me and you're just like celibate most of the time because you're like, I don't know what's happening. But that's another conversation for another
We'll
time.
dive into that later.
Yeah.
All right. In another interview, 2021, Damn These Heels, Apples and Trees, short programs, post-film question and answers. You described how Lady Gaga's Marry the Night was one of the inspirations for How to Raise a Black Boy, that whole collage scene that she does in
Mhm.
terms of that. So the representation of that. So with that in mind and our pre-conversation that we first time had, list three aspects of life and creativity that Beyonce could improve on. Go.
I think she could be more honest. I think she life
Yeah.
no, life and creativity. I don't know. I feel like she's so like I don't know. I think she's honest. I don't know. I think like let me actually think about this. I want to kind of answer this.
You don't
I
have to. Don't let the beehive come for you.
I don't really honestly I don't really know.
That's okay.
I don't even know if the beehive is really still. I think they're still working, but I'm like it's been so long. You know what I mean? It's kind of like
Are you
tired. You
still
know
on
what I
the
mean? Like
rota?
yeah, I don't know if they're still functioning. Like I feel like it's like Twitter. I feel like it's still working, but like no one's really working there. You know?
That is true.
The
In
servers.
every episode, somehow Beyonce ends up making it into my episode. Either I bring it or in a conversation. And I'm just waiting to get cancelled because of that. Just
Maybe you're obsessed. I don't know. Who knows?
because I feel like I hear so many stories about people just like coming for you, and I have yet to have that. So, one day,
Yeah, one day. One day.
one day. All right, I'm going to share my screen for this because this is our watching round as well as a listening round. So you featured in these two projects, which I really, really have loved, which is Rodney Chrome's 5 stars. Okay. As well as what is it? A queer love story. This is magic by a great big world.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so with that in mind, with the two projects that you have been featured on, list 3 policies you would run on as your candidacy for president of the United States of America. Go.
Justice for all. I would get rid of
Yeah.
guns. Actually, I wouldn't get rid of guns. I would like do what Julia Fox said, where she was like, women should have guns because like penises are like weapons of mass destruction. And I was like, yeah, that makes sense. Like, I don't know why, but that logic really made sense.
Wait, did you watch her on Z-Way, who I'm absolutely obsessed with?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was like, oh yeah, Julia Fox's makes sense. Like sometimes Julia Fox's hot takes are like they resonate really deeply with me. And I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah, like women should have guns because men have penises.
Agreed. Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree with that. I also think like she should have her own show of some sort, which is on like a bigger space. So it doesn't need to be a podcast or a film or a reality TV show. It needs to be she needs to have her own something.
Yeah. Julia Fox.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's on its way. I don't know. I don't but I also feel like she's just like such a New York girly that like that's sometimes all you need to be.
Yep. All right, your last round. This is your last questions. You did a beautiful campaign for Calvin Klein with Dazed called Pearls in the Spotlight. So list 3 things because recently she's been popping up on my feed a lot and I love her. List 3 things Kiki Palmer would say if she was featured in that campaign in 5 seconds. Go.
She would say, I don't know that man. She would say she would be pregnant, I guess, and maybe I don't know.
I'm sorry to this man. I don't know this man.
Sorry to this man. I don't know this man. I've never seen this man in my life.
I think she's so genius. I really think she is one of the most genius actresses out right now who are just like hustling on every single platform.
Yeah. I think she's really interesting. I think like I also always feel like she's like an older woman stuck in like a young woman's body. Like it
Mm.
reminds me of like my older aunties, and I'm like, oh wow, like this these are your like you speak like this. And I'm like, okay. Like also she just also like she needs to play like Angela Bassett and Angela Bassett's bio.
Directed by Angela Bassett or not really?
I don't know. I don't know. But I just feel like they're so similar, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wait, I feel like Kiki Palmer is more funnier though.
Yeah.
Angela Bassett is much more gritty.
Yeah. Yeah. But they have like a similar like they look alike and like it's weird. It's
Wait,
weird.
they did do the film together. Her first film, isn't it?
Yeah, like
Yeah,
Akil and the Bee.
that's it. I was gonna say something spelling bee, but that's not it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But it was good. It was I loved them together always. So I kind of want to see that one day.
one day. But they did do an interview recently. What was it for Vanity Fair or something? Which
I
was
don't
really,
think I've seen
yeah, it was really good. I mean, I can stop this podcast and we can just watch that.
that yet.
Well, more than anything, throughout just watching you this entire week, I said this to you the first time we spoke, I just want to know your skincare routine. And I think people should know your skincare routine. Because it just looks great.
Thank you.
And like you're just beautiful.
Thank you. I feel like my skincare routine has to do a lot with just like simplicity and like I realized for myself that I didn't realize that like oily skin needs oils.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like that's the reason that it's producing all of like that sebum. So that's kind of my thing. I'm like kind of oily skin, but I like make sure that I put the right oils on top so I don't do anything weird.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've also
Wait,
feel like
we talked about The Ordinary. We talked about
oh
Korean
yeah, the
skincare.
ordinary. I
Yeah.
love the because it's just it feels simple. It's just like really like this is the especially for like skin of color, I think. Like it's nice to know that you're not getting like fragrance in your skincare or you're not getting alcohol like weird alcohols that aren't the right types of alcohols in your skincare
Yeah.
because like Caucasian skin can take all that shit and not like hyperpigment. But like I like put on one thing and it has fragrance and my face is like red alert, red alert, red alert. Like we can't do this
Yeah.
because like the melanocytes just like go insane. So that's one thing. Like if you have skin of color, just like don't put fragrance on your face. You know, it's just so bad for you.
I agree with you. It took me a long time to do that because it's a senses thing as well that you want to smell things. So like lavender infused or like orange infused, you're like, oh, this is calming. This
Yeah,
is
yeah, yeah.
delicious. This does something. And then you're like, no, breakouts.
But you
No,
can do it like I think all over your body and stuff. Like you can,
no, I break out because especially I
oh,
have rosacea or like
oh, okay.
psoriasis. So I realized
So
later
no.
on, no. So I just stick to body oil, like straight up either neem oil, which is like an Ayurvedic thing. So like
And that
South
smells great too.
neem oil actually doesn't. Coconut oil does. So I
I
mix it
think
with
neem
coconut.
oil has like an interesting smell though. It's not like horrible. It's like
It's
kind of
earthy. It's very earthy.
I think like on like a more like masculine person, it would smell really good. You know what I mean?
Did you just diss me already?
No, like no. What I'm saying
Wow.
is like
Wow.
I feel like
Wow.
no, no. What I mean is like if you're
I'm
like in
joking.
a weird. I know I'm in this like I go back and forth with like gender stuff. Like if you feel like very like masculine and like woodsy one day,
Yeah.
that's a vibe.
Well,
You know?
I mean, like since we're talking about that, that was going to be one of my questions, which in a lot of my interviews, so like when I was listening to you on the Roaring Twenties podcast, which by the way I'll link stuff to, but go on. You're kind of discussing in regards to pronouns, how you're kind of making it not adjustments, if I'm paraphrasing, please correct me, but in regards to being non-binary. But then when you did the ABC interview, you are very much standing that you use they them pronouns, you are non-binary, and then watching a lot of your things, I was very intrigued to know, how do you sit with sexuality and gender today? Because for some people that's a very linear line, for some people it's a very blurred line, for some people it just is. So I as of today, how do you feel in it?
I feel like with those things, I've been thinking about this a lot, and I think it's about performance and also about like it's really situational. And creating those type of like dynamics. For example, for like the ABC News thing, I had to like be pretty distinct in saying that like, oh, my pronouns are they, them, and like I am non-binary because I'm on a panel full of like cisgendered men of a certain time and a certain age on a certain network where like that is like really going to be given to like this really like the masses and the masses may not completely understand the different nuances, correct? But I feel like if I'm talking to and the interviewer was like a straight man, you know, so I think that is also like okay, I'm gonna give you the ABCs like one two threes easy. But like if I'm talking to like another queer person and I'm in like a queer space, I feel a little bit more freedom and like not only doing like the ABCs or the one, two, threes, where I can like maybe set in a little bit of like, I guess, gender algebra there. So people aren't like it's not like for me when I'm around queer people, I'm really kind of open with I think pronouns and usually people who like I am comfortable with, I'm really open with pronouns with my friends and my family and things like that because I feel like it also informs that. But I think in some spaces it's important to um, have visibility because sometimes those spaces will like make you invisible. So you have to use pronouns and identity as a way to like shine a light on not only your own identity but like your community. Does it make any sense?
I just muted myself, but yes, it does because I was coughing.
Cool. Yeah, I was thinking. I was like, I think that
No,
that's like
it's because I've had a cold. Everybody freaking London just gets, you get on the tube and everyone's like,
Oh, no, I hate that. That's so horrible.
I hate this shit. Like literally, I got on the tube yesterday. This person, the carriage is empty. And when I tell you empty, she comes and sits next to me. Old lady, bless her soul, everything. I moved to like my gloves and my book. And she's just like, and I'm just like, woman,
Like not this. You said I can't. I
I
can't.
can't. So yeah, so I've got the cold now.
But yeah, that's like my idea on gender, I guess. And also, I guess with sexuality, that's also different. I don't know how I'm feeling about those things. Like I was saying earlier, I've been, I think, looking more into like the performance of sexuality and sex recently, and like really trying to figure out those dynamics, even within myself and in the past. Right now, I'm in the like right now, I was a contributor to a book that's coming out in February called A Pill for Promiscuity. It's about gay sex in the age of the pharmaceuticals. And the editor for that, Andrew Spieldenner, we've kind of been in the talks about a new kind of book project that is talking about, I guess, just like overarching like blackness, queerness, and criminalisation. And they wanted me to talk about like what does the future of this look like? Like how can we like reclaim those things? And I've been strangely interested in like kink, especially for Black people and Black and brown people, because there are so many dynamics in there that seem really like would be really weird for Black people to participate in, just because of like generational trauma, such as like a master slave dynamic or like rope play, or even like, I guess, like play with, I guess, leadership figures or figures
Power
in power.
dynamics. Yeah.
And so, like, that's one thing I've been just trying to figure out with myself, where I don't necessarily know anymore, I guess, which is, I guess, maybe okay, but like, I've been feeling a little bit like sexually stagnant because I'm like, I love the idea of kink for the moment of like exploration, but sometimes I feel like all I'm doing is playing a role for people, and like those roles are getting really like tired. Like I'm kind of like I don't this isn't like necessarily fun or exciting. You know, like I think
Yeah.
also especially that within like for me like different forms of like hookup culture and what does it mean to be specifically like a person of color who's queer within those spaces. 'Cause I think there are so many roles you're given, and I'm just like, oh my God, this is a lot. And it's a lot, but it's still not enough. Doesn't make any sense. Like it's a lot of not
Yes.
enough.
How do you
So
deal with that? Because sorry, did I interrupt on your thought?
no, 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 no.
No.
No, you're good.
I always find it intriguing when we're dealing with sexuality and gender and the bystander of what that is. So whether it be queer, gay, bisexual, trans, the intersectionality of that and what the bystander of that is, but then our personal journey. And sometimes, like you're saying, it gets overwhelming. But how do you deal with that emotional aspect? Just like you said, it gets tiring. I feel like sometimes it's saddening as well because there's a lot of people that you can't talk to, even within the community.
Yeah. Yeah. I just get like I feel like I'm like searching more for like I guess play and forms of like I guess like joy, and maybe
Mm.
even joy in like these things that I may have found as perverse, or joy in the taboo and things like that. And I've also started to feel a little bit like bogged down by feeling like I'm replicating like straight sex for people, or like there's this idea of like straightness has become so, I think I feel like in some ways, like because of the progress of queer people, there's been kind of this strange alignment towards straightness in some ways of like, oh, if like we're the same and like we're not, and like we live different worlds and we have different dynamics, and like I don't want to have like a straight relationship with someone. You know, like I don't want to replicate that necessarily.
Can I ask what you're talking in regards to translating that in a form of, are you talking about attributes, personality attributes, or are you talking about romantically?
I'm talking about like romantically and even like I guess like sexually. Like I think one thing that always really confused me, especially with like gay men, was like the top and bottom idea because it still doesn't make sense to me. Like
Hmm.
it's still like to this day, I don't get it sometimes because I'm like, we're gay. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, I'm like, we're like, I'm like, we're gay though, so like, it all doesn't really matter. And then it's like,
Wait, what do
even
you mean it doesn't matter in terms of like giving or receiving, or you're just like,
it doesn't
dude,
seem like
fuck
it
each
really
other? Like,
matters. Like, it doesn't even really matter. Like, you don't even need to like necessarily like if we're queer, you don't even need to necessarily like penetrate someone to have sex. Or
fascinating. Wait, why do you say that?
because I feel like if you think about it, like if for me, it's like if I think about it, it's like if you don't, if that's not like the situation that's working sexually, there's a
Yeah.
plethora of other things to do.
Yes, but a lot of people don't want to explore that.
But I'm just like, I just don't, I sometimes I just get confused because I'm like, why are we as queer people, I feel like we're like shrinking our, like what we want down
Uh-huh.
can do down to what straight people can do.
Well,
Like
those, yeah, yeah.
like sex or like or even like I also think even like the like phenotypes of like within gayness of like this person looks like a top or this person looks like a bottom or this person is this and or da, 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 da. And I'm like I am so lost. And I think that also is me being like slowly disconnecting myself from gayness into being like a more like non-binary person. But like even in that, that holds a whole gamut of, I guess, complications.
Should we
What?
just, I was like, should we just talk about this the whole time? But we have so much.
It's true. I think I'm just like in a weird spot where I never thought I would be like sexually frustrated in this way.
Yeah.
Like I am. And I'm like, how am I now like coming into myself? But the more I feel like I'm coming into myself, the less like I don't think this is true, but it seems that there are like less options for me romantically or sexually the more I know myself.
May I ask an intrusive question, which you can
Yeah.
say no to? Does that come from the fact because I think conversations around a lot of those happens, which you just pointed out when you're romantically unfulfilled, because I think romance takes a different form when we're in that space. So when we have somebody to share moments of tenderness with, but also share moments of sensuality and sexuality and all of those other things, I think that's a different space to be in. So basically, in layman forms, what I'm saying is does it come from the fact that you don't have anybody to share that experience or conversation with right now?
Maybe I think it might. And I think also it's to like not continue to blame straightness, but I think it's like going back to like roles and like timelines. Like
Yeah.
in my mind, I'm like, oh my God, I'm literally 20. I just turned 24. By now, my mom was married.
We're a
You
different generation. Don't you
know,
worry about that. We're like, I'm
but
32.
no, but even in that of like seeing other people, like
Yeah.
seeing like other straight people who I'm friends with, I'm like, you're getting married? You know what I mean? Like I'm like, what? You know, or like, or even myself, I think it's like we're living in a time where I guess gay people have more rights and but we just haven't seen it yet. Like in some ways we've seen like queer people be in relationships and have long-term relationships. Of course, we've all seen that, but even for me, there are still some elements that I don't know how to navigate. Like, I don't know how to navigate. Like, I sometimes feel like the only thing that's like given to me, and this isn't like always a bad thing. And like, I've found like joy and love in these scenarios, but I have to be honest, like I feel like I'm only gonna like I have to like marry a white man or something. Like I have to like date a white man. And like that's not a bad thing, but I'm like, why is this the role? You know what I mean? Like, why do I only see that around me? You know, and that's just me being honest, I
Yeah.
guess. I don't like again, I will say that's not a bad thing. I think that's like a great thing regardless of love you find. But I think for me, I'm just like, that's just a really interesting perspective thing that I'm going through where I'm like, there's more options.
But are you innately doing anything in regards to that? So like it's like being like, I will only go out with brown boys or ethnic people, or I will not date white people, or I won't do X, Y, and Z. Like,
I guess I'm just like, but I've like pulled off from dating people. Like I've like
yeah.
because I'm also like I'm the aggressor. Like I've never really been the person. No one's ever asked me out on a date.
What?
Like no, I've never
Nobody
like
slides in your DMs?
no
Why do I have people here all the time who never get any DM slidation?
no
Um,
I
can
and
everybody please slide into Justice's DMs, please? Thank you so much.
but, but
That will
I'm
be
never
the title. Slide into my DMs with Justice Jamal Jones.
but like like I don't like people don't
Yeah.
I don't like I go out places and people like don't come up to me and ask me like what my name I don't get that energy so I'm always
On the
being
apps, on the apps.
even on the apps I
Are
feel
you
like
sure?
yeah even on the apps yeah
I
I'm
find
not
that hard to believe, Justice. Look at you.
no I'm not lying I think I'm honest about this like I think it also the apps I also confuse people don't like especially like on Grinder like this is not the same like that world is crazy like I don't think it doesn't even really fit for me and
But are
honestly
also people reaching out and you're just picky?
no I don't think so I'm being completely honest like
I just listened. I
I'm all
quest.
I feel like I'm the aggressor. And so
Yeah.
it's how do so since I've been saying like, oh no, I'm not gonna do that anymore.
Yeah.
See what like comes to me. It's been a little bit of a lull, but hopefully that lull is creating like better boundaries and better like I guess connections of like this is what like I
Just
guess
say it.
like it's creating better like I don't want to be that person like, oh I'm manifesting it but like
I
maybe
mean,
like
you
when you
can.
don't choose sometimes the right things come you
Yeah.
know like instead of like choosing like things for the moment or like short-term things
If people could slide into Justice's DMs, court them,
I don't know I don't know.
woo them is what I say. Woo them,
Yeah
take them out to a couple of dates. All of those things. Was it like miscongeniality? If I was to ask you, what's your perfect date? And you'll be like, March 23rd. Not too hot, not too cold.
honestly yeah I'm like I don't even know if I have a perfect date what is my perfect date
What would
I'm a
genuinely
Sagittarius
as a lame question, as of this moment, this very moment right now, if somebody was to come into your life and be that person for you, what do they look like? What do they sound like? How do they treat you?
I feel like these are like things that I like things that I hold really close to myself and things
Yeah.
that like I think work for me is like I would really want to have a partner that would want to like do healthy things with me. I guess I know that sounds really stupid, but like
So if you just want to Netflix and chill and eat Cheetos and things like that, that's out of the question.
no, I love that stuff. Like I love we can watch Netflix all day.
But
If
5 days of binging on
we're
donuts.
not doing that a lot. Like I like my perfect date is that if like someone wanted me to like go like crazy over them would be like, oh, we're gonna go hiking on a really nice hiking trip. And it has to be just like a day.
That's my nightmare.
And we go hiking and there's like and we're not like running up the hill, but like you brought like snacks and
A knife, if in case somebody decides to
yeah,
do thing, guns, a whole arson. Because
but
we
like we
got
like we're doing something or like we go on a boat or like you like you know what I mean like I'm adventurous like I want to
it.
do like I want someone to take me somewhere
Okay.
and I want to take someone else somewhere.
In a year's time, I'll drop you a line again, and you'll be like, "Oh, guess what? I'm with like X and X, and our first date was hiking in Nevada," and I'll be like, "Wow." Be like, "Wow, manifestation."
Who knows? Oh God.
Well, shifting gears because we've talked about love, romance, and sexuality for such a
I
long
find
time.
it so interesting because I feel like I'm in my like Cruella de Vil
No.
era where I'm like, no love, only career. No.
I love her. I feel like she should have come back for the remake. Like in some way, how on Wednesday you have was it Christina something coming back?
Yes, I would
She,
have loved seeing Glenn Close in that remake.
yeah. Glenn Close is just the even the animations have like her spirit in it. But
Yeah,
yeah. Did you see her at the Met? Like when she was wearing Valentino and she's just like
I don't
all
know. I think she's also a queer icon because if you look at her in the '90s, she's so like beautifully
beautiful.
butch.
Yeah.
And I was like hot, like no joke. Like there's a interview of her like maybe on the Rosie O'Donnell show, and she's like wearing this like black turtleneck and this leather jacket, and I'm like, and her hair.
I see for me it was what's her name? Jamie Lee Curtis. And
Yeah.
and in a way, what's her name as well? Oh my god, a Whoopi Goldberg in a
Oh
way.
yeah.
Yeah. All right, let's shift gears because I really wanted to find this out, especially when I have people who have such a poignant view. And there's this actor who talks about the tenderness of the Black experience, and he talks about the joy in that and how he talks about his auditions that sometimes he would have and how he would get just stereotyped all the time. And he wanted roles and stories that would elaborate on the experience of just like, let's say, if it was two Black men just holding hands and that being a tender moment and expanding the narrative that is constantly just out there. And I found that in your interviews and in watching How to Raise a Black Boy, that was something that I don't know if I'm just reading on or if I'm projecting, but that is something that comes out a lot. And I'm intrigued to know, going through this quest myself, of what is it that I want my work to now project in this point of my life. Where does this passion really stem from? And how have you come to be where it is today? Because watching I don't know if that was your first project, but American Horror Story,
Oh yeah, that was a long time ago. Wow. How'd you find that? Is that online?
it is online. Yeah.
I need to delete it.
I mean, I can say, no, don't delete it.
I think I have an obsession with like beauty and like with beauty and things that are like quite ugly. I don't think things can exist. I don't That's why I'm quite skeptical of beauty a lot of the time.
Hmm.
And because I feel like beauty can only exist because of maybe some sort of violence in some ways that I kind of think of. And that might be a bit pessimist, but I think that almost, but when we find beauty that is like really organic and natural, that is like like so precious and so like something to be like taken care of. But once it becomes kind of like possessed, it gets I think it's tainted. But I think with my work, I think I've been trying to live in both of those forms of like duality. Like I love like with I think with the things, the visuals I want to create, I think I just want to make honest art more than anything. And I know that sounds a bit cliche, but like honest for me, I'm not really a person that is trying to be representative of an entire um, demographic because I don't think I can do that, and that's just me being honest. Like I don't think someone's like, oh, this is a great story that represents the Black community, and I'm like, I don't think it is because this is just my perspective, and I am not the Black community. In order for us to see representation of the entire Black community, we need more than one person at the table. Like we need the whole table.
But I think sometimes there's something the opposite of that, using those things to get ourselves into the door and getting things like project grants or applications.
Yeah, most definitely. Like using like those things to get us in the door. But I also do think like that's one thing that I've been really trying to think a lot about, where I'm like, oh, like representation is such a huge, huge word. And like that is still like a goal. Like it's still like an idea, you know? And I think we're still kind of pushing towards that. And I think also if like with tenderness, I'm trying to always kind of like trying to stylize my emotions in different ways. And I don't know, I've just been realizing that there's a lot of like things are not always black and white, and emotions and feelings aren't always black and white, and things that are tender and like that, like seeing two black men hold hands might feel more tender than seeing two white men holding hands to some, because of more struggle that those two black men have had to face to do that. You know,
Mhm.
like an immediate ability to do that in some ways, within other types of people, I guess.
So my question to you is this: why not theater? Why not radio? Why not other things? You went into filmmaking, and then from me as a consumer of your product, it's a very stylized, conceptual way that you have shared your vision with us. Did you know that you were always going to be like this, or that was the work? That's intentional or not really intentional?
I think so, yeah. I
Yeah.
think for me, like I've always been a very visual person, and I think visuals, I always saw visuals as like, I guess, puzzle pieces when I was a kid. And even now, I feel like visuals tell us a lot about people, and they're like great cues. And I think sometimes my visual intelligence wasn't, and I think in the same way with a lot of queer people, wasn't celebrated in school. Like I think queer people in general just have this incredible intelligence of creating image, and I think that's what we're continuously doing with ourselves, I guess. And so I feel like it would just be intrinsic for me to create films that feel very stylized and embodied, and I think queer in the same ways that I feel queer. And I think queerness is also like an element of like becoming and like transforming and reforming, and I kind of want my films to embody that.
Got it.
So yeah.
Do you ever fight that? Because sometimes I fight my instinct. Because like running into circles or like going to film school, there's lots of people that talk about having commercial viability as opposed to doing art indie house projects.
Yeah.
Lots of big directors talk about it as well. Do you ever question that?
I don't think I did question that, because I
Yeah.
think for me, one part of me, just speaking very honestly, is like I grew up in acting, I grew up in modeling, I grew up in that kind of world. And I realized how much that what I realized, I got really tainted by commerciability. What is that word?
Commercial industry, you can just say.
Like how commercial I could be.
Yeah.
You like, oh, like we like your look because you're just dark enough to be a black person, but you're not too dark. And people like literally saying stuff like that to you. Or like, oh, can they fit this? Or can they fit that? And it's like, oh no, like that's not the idea. Like, and I think for film was my escape, and my escape from that world. Because when I went to NYU drama, I was excited to become an actor. I thought that was what I was going to do, and I still think in many ways I will act and do stuff in the future. But I got there and I was really disappointed, and I just continuously was given the same type of roles. No one really knew what to do with me. I didn't learn much, and I just like felt like I was just kind of sitting there. And filmmaking was my like revolt, and like me doing exactly what I wanted to do. And so I guess since that was like the origin, I don't really ever feel like I will like try to be commercial.
Got it.
Like even in like commercial works of like with Calvin Klein and MTV, I am like continuously pushing stuff, and getting paid for that. At least me and my friends are getting paid,
Yeah.
like at least like if we are doing something that we might have to slightly change for the client, that balances out, you know?
Got it. All right. Well, I do want to talk about How to Raise a Black Boy, and the two things. If everybody just wants to type that in and your name, I think you'll find lots of questions, which I'm just not going to repeat myself. But I want to geek out a little bit about it. And the conversation that you and I had once, you were like in the graphics and the collaging of it, you put so many like little hidden gems that people might not know. So I wanted to ask, what are some of the things that you haven't told anybody that you have put in there that you'll be like, oh my God, nobody addressed that. And also, I was like, the shots of the boys and the groups and things like that, for me, correct me if I'm incorrect, I feel like that comes from your family running, what was it, a group and lots of boys living there. Does that influence the film?
Yeah, it
And then
does.
and then the third thing was, I have two quotes here from the film, which I wanted to do. I don't know if you've ever watched Jimmy Kimmel when he has like musicians on or rappers on and things like that. And they say a line and then people dumb it down like the dummies version. And I was
Okay.
going to read them out. And I was like, if you could dummy it down for the, for the average person who's not into the world of poetry or spoken word, let's do
Okay.
that. So yeah, go for it.
Honestly, I feel like my friend Angie, who's always gonna probably edit most of all my work, has more hidden gems because like would know more of them because she put them there.
Got it.
But I some of the hidden gems, let me try to think.
Give me three. How about that? Just three.
I think the king in the end, like the last collage, actually
Yeah.
is really interesting because I've been doing a lot of research on like the Moors, like the Black Moors in Italy. And I think now looking back on it, that was like a hidden gem for me in the future because we just saw like a black man as a king and we're like, oh, okay, great. But I think it's actually a depiction of Saint Benedict the Moor, who was like one of the like a black saint, and so that's really cool. So that's one. Another thing, there are, I don't know, I feel like I said this before, but my mom's paintings are in the film,
Yes, you have said that.
and those are put in there a lot. There, the little girl, the little, there's a part where like the boy turns to a man in the first black and white one.
Yeah.
That's actually a little girl
Oh.
turns into an older man, and people don't realize that. There's a lot of gender.
Wait, is that catalog images, by the way, or is that people that you knew that you like?
They're like archive images.
Yeah, got it. Poor
But
people who do, can I just say, poor people who do archive images. I know I've done archive images, and that shit, you get paid like $100 or something, and you're like, oh my God, I got money. And then that shit will get used left and right for certain big stuff. And you're just like, damn it, I should have signed that.
it's like we have it.
All
um,
right.
what is the other? I don't know what else.
What
Uh,
is there's writings in there that with like some of the birds and things like that that I could for the life of me have never been able to read.
oh yeah, they're like really loopy and like
Yeah, that
I think the first one says Hermes, flight and other. It's about like Hermes, and I think he's saying like it's like flight and other.
there's like queer and one in black and one, and then I want to say like quest or something like that.
Yeah, that's like the third one. I'll look into them and I'll let you know.
Yes,
I
please.
totally forgot, but
All right.
they're literally three like kind of chapters in the book.
Yes, which I just picked on today. I was like, I
Yeah.
didn't realize that it was divided into three. All right, shall we do the lyrics situation, which I
Yes.
feel like I kind of know, but you said every time everybody watches it, they have their own interpretation of it, and you want to kind of leave it. So this will be your interpretation of two little sections that I've pulled. So I'll stop at every full stop, or do you want me to say the whole paragraph?
No, to say the full paragraph.
Okay, this in no way is going to be done accurately by the narrated voice that was in there, which was so much better. Mine is going to be dry AF, so just live with it,
This
people.
will be like British.
Well, I'm not really British. Like, I'm born in Holland, so this will be.
It will sound.
It will sound what it will sound like, kids. Just deal with it. Daddy hated them stories and said they would make us into fairies and not the kind from Mama's books. He said boys were to be brave and soon would take place as men of the house. But Mommy said there were two types of fairies. The good ones made from laughter and those made from secrets, and our family had secrets.
So pretty much what they're saying is like I think I really like those lines because I think it plays a lot around with fairies. I really wanted to really I think it might have been the 18 like the end of the 1800s into the early 1900s, like fairies became kind of this like slur for gay men.
Yep.
Like that's kind of what the father is referring to of like, oh, like if you keep telling these young boys these fairy tales, they actually will become gay men, or like they won't have like the strength to be men, I guess. And so that's like kind of the first part. But then also the mom kind of counteracts that by saying, like, actually, the only fairies you have to be scared about are like the real ones, or like the ones in the books, because those fairies are kind of like a metaphor of like beautiful, like I guess kind of like these auras, or like these intentions you set out can come from like secrets or like joy. And
Mm-hmm.
like laughter is like a, like, you know, like, because in Peter Pan, I have to go back into like why in Peter Pan, you know, they say like fairies come from when the first time a baby laughs, correct? And so in
I
my,
mean, like, I haven't watched it in like 6,000 years, but sure.
yeah, but that's what they say, you know?
Yeah.
And so then I started to wonder, I was like, there must be evil fairies, because there must be like fairies from the first time a baby cries, like first time a baby like lies or like holds a secret, you know? And like and I think that dynamic kind of shows the kind of like the impact we have on the world, I think, of like the joy we have like resonates across the world, and this like kind of shame we can hold also resonates.
I thought that was a genius way. All right, the next part. Maybe the trees were afraid too. It is why they didn't bloom that spring. To kill fear is not a job for the faint heart, for you must kill a piece of yourself in the process. The creature in your head that consumes your mind, in your heart and soul, making you dormant like the trees.
So at first, you'll never believe this, I like kind of wrote How to Raise a Black Boy as like a sci-fi film at first, because I was like, oh, we're gonna talk about like how trees, Black masculinity, and climate change are all happening at the same time.
I
And
would
then I
like to
was
see
like,
that version.
what?
I would like to see that version.
I was like, wait a minute. And then I saw everything and we got there and I was like, we have to change some stuff. And so I started to kind of so with all of that, I think there's this kind of idea of like, I try to kind of think of like Black men as trees in different ways. And that's kind of where my brain started with that idea, with the sci-fi kind of film, and like deforestation alongside like the mass killings of Black people in general. So I kind of thought of like in what ways, like as a Black person, when you're seeing your family being killed across the world. And I think as trees, when like if trees were to see their family be killed across the world, instead of to be killed by like an axe or by a machine, they would just go dormant and die themselves. And I think in some ways that's kind of how I started to feel,
Yeah.
where I was like, oh, like if people, like if this is the situation, like I'll just die, you know, like, and I'll hold myself back, or I'll like just numb myself away. And that's kind of the whole idea, but of like, and I think also the metaphor for me and like my own mental health was like, we go through these periods of like dormancy, and spring always is coming. And so do trees have faith that spring comes again? I think some ways they do, or maybe they don't, and they forget every year, but it comes back. And so that's kind of one thing with myself that I tried to remind myself, that we're in cycles. And I
Yeah.
think with the film, there's a lot of cycles and it's not linear. The film's not about lines. And so, and nature is about cycles. So I've been trying to remind, that's the kind of idea for myself while writing it, and for others, was like trying to look at our lives through cycles and not through lines, because we will go back to those places again, but we'll maybe have the knowledge of like, oh, spring comes.
Got it. How much of it, I'm curious to know, just you wrote pre and post in terms of the narration?
It was probably like 40-60. I wrote like 40% of it before and then 60% after.
How do you, I'm intrigued to know this. When you write your treatments and when you're doing stuff, how do you shoot specific shots that you know, is it a much more like a holistic experience that you end up shooting a lot of shit that's just gonna make sense with like the narration, or you're just like, dear God, I hope.
Okay, so this was my idea behind it. I don't know if this works. I don't know if this is true. I don't know if this is how people would tell you to do it in film school. But I was like, okay, so these are the shots. Like I had my shot list, and my shot list was, and I had a script too. And I was like, okay, so boys come in, they run in the house, da da da. And there was no,
Storyboarding, basically.
and it was just visual at this
Yeah.
point. all visual. And I was like, there will be narration over this eventually. But I don't want to get the, I don't want the, what I did not want to do was write for me. And this is kind of how I feel like I don't want to write the narration before the visual because I was like, if I get stuck, it's not gonna fit. Like these kids can't fit this. Like I'm not gonna like I want it to feel organic of what we're saying because I feel like the words are telling. I know that sounds weird, but like the words are telling the story, right? So
Yeah.
you then see the visual from the words. So like if I were to make it, I would have to see the visual and then place the words behind it so that it feels organic. Like it feels almost actually synced.
But that's from you as a filmmaker, right? So like from an acting perspective, what do you tell your actors and your crew? Like how
Like
do you...
told them what was happening. Like I
Yeah.
told them kind of what was happening, but also we like but we lived what was we like did what was happening in the moment. Like we like said this is the idea. Like we knew we were talking about like the trees and like things like that. And I gave like really broad ideas, but it wasn't like, oh, this is your point and you need to be here. Like it was like we are having an exploration in the woods with all these things, and I knew what was happening. Like I think back, like I knew the story. I knew the story of what was happening. I
Yeah.
just didn't know how the story was going to be told. I didn't know well, like I like knew like the boys do this. They go into the basement, they find this man. The man is upstairs. They go away and they run away. They run. They come back. They go like I had all that stuff, but I
Yeah.
did not have the narration to go over.
What, just pause that thought. So what about the MTV piece that you did, as well as the Dazed piece that you did?
For the MTV thing, we had that kind of all. It was all the same. It was all like one script because it was like a commercial
Yeah.
kind of thing. So it was like the script was already made. We already knew what we were gonna say. We shot everything exactly the way we wanted to shoot it. The Dazed one was that was actually really fun. It was like we had a script and it was really fun. Like the script was really cool, but also it was just like interviews as well.
Yes. Also done in 3 chapters for me.
Yeah, I like threes.
Yeah, it's like the act of three. So this you learn in script writing all the time, which is like 5 act plays, 5 acts, 3 act structures, and things like that. And I was
Yeah,
just like, this is very much, but done in a very cute way, for a lack of words. Like I love the
yeah,
truth and dare at the end.
yeah. It's like it should be like feel somewhat honest,
Playful.
and like we're changing, like people like we get to know everybody. We've gone through everyone's interview, right? And then we get to play truth or dare, right? And we see that, and then we have that last little dance thing that is like, boop-a-doop-a-doop-a-doop,
Yeah.
and then it ends, but it still goes back to kind of what was happening in the beginning.
Got it. The arc. The overall arc.
Yeah, like the
Yeah.
phone call, you know.
Intrigued to know the technicality challenges as well as the post-production joys that you've had. So the technicalities in terms of like obtaining, let's say, funding or budgets and things like that, or like premise, I don't know, insurances, locations and stuff like that, or like pitching it versus like when I watched it at BFI Flair and I reached out to you and I was like, oh my God, this is like the best shit ever. Or like similar stories. So like what have been those two things?
So
But
How is a Black Boy? I still am kind of amazed on how it was done. I think I just went into like a extreme amount of focus that I'm still trying to deal with myself. Because it was really, I just really was like, we will make this film. And we did some crowdfunding. I paid for some of it. I then found like private investors. It was just like I was just like literally like in New York, just like looking for dollars on the street. You know what I mean? Like it was like that, like okay, we have money here, we have money here, we have this, and this. And I just we just got it done. And it wasn't expensive because I think it was a student film. So it wasn't expensive
I did
really.
not know this, that it's a student film.
Yeah, I was a student in college when I made it.
This is a good student film then. For a student film to done what it's done, because like you received like it went places. It's not done. Do you know what I mean? Like
Yeah, it was my first film. Like American Horror Story, I don't even count because American Horror Story was a part of when I went to NYU drama and I went to Stone
I
Street.
thought it's good.
The first time I went to NYU,
Yeah,
I went to a summer program.
got it.
It was a weird thing. And I didn't listen to him. I forgot the guy's name.
I can pull up on YouTube if his credits are there if you want me to.
Might be there. He was my teacher, and he told me he's like
Justice Jamal Jones. No, it doesn't say. A film directed and written by Justice Jamal Jones, starring Emma Kidd, Zach Gold, and just nope, doesn't say anything.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, he told me he was like, Justice, maybe you shouldn't go to drama school. Maybe you should apply for film school. And I was like, no, I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it. I want to go to drama school. Because we did that in a summer program, and that was a class. Like we
Wow.
did a whole bunch of stuff. And it was a month. It was like 6 weeks. And we did that in like, I made that film in like weeks. And like I edited it all together myself, and I was in my room just like editing away, just wanting to be good and like make something cool, and like that's what happened. And so I think but I also think like it's all like relative. I think it's
Yeah.
all like it's like all a cycle. Like I was like feeling like I was in summer with How There's a Black Boy when it came out, and it was hot. Like spring it came out and it was hot, and it was hot for a bit, and it's hot. You know what I mean? And we went into fall, and now I feel like How Is a Black Boy might be entering it's like winter, and that's okay. And like while I'm in winter, I'm thinking about other things. And I think that is what I'm in realizing is important. And I think in New York, honestly, I didn't think that this was possible. I always thought, oh, I have a new thing every month. I have to do something new. I have to tell people that I'm relevant. And that makes your work bad, I think. I think there's a reason, not to talk about Beyonce again, there's a reason that Beyonce doesn't make an album every year. You know what I mean?
I tell you, she makes it every time into a goddamn episode.
Not even Beyonce, but like like Ariana Grande, like Rihanna hasn't made music in years.
That's because music doesn't make money.
No, but that's their art. These people believe in their art though. Like at the end of the day,
yeah.
artists. Like even like Lady Gaga, like they don't need it to make it. They like music. They don't need to make money.
Yeah.
But they do it because it's like what they do.
Yeah.
Like that's how I feel. Like this is what I do. Like I'll make money in other ways, and it like supplements some things, but like it's what they do. And like I think that comes with like allowing yourself like a reinvention, and allowing yourself like a little bit of a like step away, because I know that these things only exist in like these like 5-minute spurts.
Well, everyone, that brings us to the end of part 1 of part 2 of my chat with the one and only Justice Jamal Jones. I'm so thankful to Justice for the time and generosity. Make sure to keep an eye out for part 2, because it'll be also full of banter, but most importantly full of games, because we get into the game section of the show. All of the information about the guest, myself, and the show will be listed in the bio. Make sure to follow, share, comment, and subscribe. Show us all some love, because isn't that what we want at the end of the day? Some love. Your support really helps the show and the message of it grow, and the people that are on here. Thank you again, and as I always say, breathe in, breathe out. Now must go, which means now I must go. I own that is copyrighted, and I will sue. Joking. Have a great one and stay curious. Till next time.